Welcome to Stephen FM AI Trump Daily Dump. Today, we are decoding some fascinating documents that seem to lay out a five-front strategy for global power. And it's a playbook that, well, it jumps from peacemaking to military pressure in the blink of an eye. So let's dive right in. Okay, so let's start with what seems like a massive contradiction, right? I mean, on one hand, you've got a president winning a major peace prize. And on the other, he's parking a naval armada right off an adversary's coast. So the big question is, how can both of those things be true at the same time? We're going to break down the documents to see how this whole strategy works, and we'll start with that prize. All right, our first document details what looks like a major win for Trump on the world stage. We're talking about a really surprising endorsement from FIFA, one of the most powerful global institutions out there that isn't a government. So picture this. It's the World Cup draw in DC, a huge global event. And right there, this award is handed over. And the specific justification, it was for Trump's role in brokering that ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And get this, it wasn't some minor acknowledgement. Nope. This was a brand new prize, apparently created just for this moment. Now, what's really interesting here is how FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, defends this decision so firmly. He actually uses the word objectively. He's framing this thing not as some political statement, but as a totally neutral choice based purely on the results, the act of saving thousands of lives. That is some powerful validation for sure. But as you might expect, the documents show this validation didn't exactly land without some serious controversy. Critics jumped on this immediately. They started pointing to other actions, like the seizure of Venezuela's president and, those public threats to use military force over Greenland. They're basically arguing, how can you give someone a peace prize with all that going on? Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and see how this fancy award connects to the reality on the ground in Gaza, because that's where this peace plan is actually being put to the test.
And look, this isn't just some plan on paper. Phase 1 is officially live. The ceasefire was brokered back in October, and just yesterday, the Rafah crossing, which is basically Gaza's main artery to the outside world, reopened. That's a huge, tangible first step. But take a look at what's next on the list. Total disarmament of Hamas and this vision for luxury reconstruction. Pretty ambitious.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates how incredibly fragile this whole situation is. The long-term vision, right, is all about luxury coastal development. But the reality, right now, is that the conflict is far, far from over. I mean, even as this big diplomatic win was happening, people were still dying. So you see the pattern? While one part of the strategy is about making deals and winning awards, another part is all about applying overwhelming military pressure. And that, of course, brings us to Iran. So Trump has sent what he calls a big and beautiful carrier battle group right to Iran's doorstep. But what the documents show is a really subtle pivot in the strategy here. The goal isn't necessarily outright regime change anymore. Instead, it's to use this massive armada as a high-pressure lever, basically to force Iran into a new, much tougher nuclear deal. And the terms of that deal, they're crystal clear. We're talking about 3 non-negotiable conditions Iran has to meet at the upcoming talks in Istanbul. Number 1, zero uranium enrichment. 2, new limits on their ballistic missile program. And 3, an end to their support for all those proxy groups across the region. No wiggle room there. So yeah, the crucial point here is this stark warning. It's the classic carrot and stick approach, isn't it? The diplomatic talks in Istanbul, that's the carrot. But this quote, backed up by an entire naval fleet, well, that's a very, very big stick. This is basically diplomacy under duress. But this strategy of applying pressure, it isn't just about forcing new deals. The documents we're looking at show it's also about acquiring strategically vital territory. According to these sources, Trump's interest in Greenland is anything but random. It's a calculated geopolitical move. I mean, think about it. The island's location is absolutely critical for controlling the Arctic. And as the ice melts, its importance as a strategic counter to Russia and China, it just keeps growing. And listen, this isn't just us speculating. Greenland's own prime minister is sounding the alarm. He's warning that this is a dead serious attempt to govern the island directly from Washington, to basically absorb it into the U.S. sphere of control. And the sources confirm this geopolitical pressure is having a real, measurable human cost. It's pretty staggering. The government has actually been forced to launch a mental health survey for its 56,000 residents. Why? Because they're reporting extraordinary pressure, major sleep problems, and just this crippling uncertainty about what their future holds. Okay, and for our final piece of the puzzle, the documents show this multi-front conflict goes way beyond geopolitics. It extends right into the cultural arena. You can see it even at the Grammy Awards. The entertainment world is just completely fractured. On one side, you've got the host, Trevor Noah, openly mocking the president, and then on the other side, you have a global pop superstar like Nicki Minaj declaring herself his #1 fan and even meeting with him at the White House. Two totally different worlds. So how did Trump respond to the criticism? Well, it was swift and it was aggressive. He dismissed the whole thing as virtually unwatchable and then immediately threatened to sue the host, Trevor Noah. This really shows a consistent pattern, right? Retaliating against media and cultural critics. So when you take a step back and connect all 5 of these dots, a really clear pattern starts to emerge, doesn't it? This starts to look less like random chaos and a lot more like a calculated multi-front strategy. It's a playbook that seems to use every single tool available. So here's the North Star, the big takeaway from all of this. What the documents seem to show is that these aren't just isolated events happening randomly. No, they look like interconnected pieces of a single, unified strategy to project American power, and it uses everything from cultural validation to the threat of overwhelming military force, all working together. And that brings us right back to the core question these sources raise. After everything we've just walked through, what do you think? Can a leader be a peacemaker and an aggressor at the exact same time? We really want to know what you think, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you want more of these deep dives where we go straight to the source documents, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe. We're going to keep analyzing these documents as they come in. What we're seeing here really looks like a blueprint for a new kind of power politics, where absolutely everything, from a soccer trophy to an aircraft carrier, is considered a tool. And that's the latest from Stephen FMA, Trump Daily Dump.